Good day, everyone. This is Ivan Belostenko for Idź Pod Prąd, Go Against ITV from Poland. Today is the 7th of May 2020. We are still in our emergency coronavirus studio, and with us we have a very special guest, Professor Jamesa Toura. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
Thank you for being with us. It's a great honor, and thank you for finding the time to speak with us today. So I'll just briefly introduce you. You have your PhD in synthetic organic and organometallic chemistry from Purdue University, postdoctoral training in synthetic organic chemistry at the University of Wisconsin and Stanford University, and you currently work in the Center for Nanoscale Science and Technology of Rice University in Texas, where you are the professor for chemistry, computer science, professor of mechanical engineering and materials science. And you're also a well-known chemist, one of the top 10 chemists in the world today, as ranked by the Thomson Reuters citation per publication index survey in 2009. You're also one of the 50 most influential scientists in the world today by bestschools.org, ranked in 2014. Some of the other things, Scientist of the Year by R&D Magazine 2013, the world's most influential scientific mind by, again, Thomson Reuters, ScienceWatch.com in 2014, and you're also co-author or author of 650 scientific publications and over 200 patents. So quite a resume. We can go on for a good few minutes as well. This is just part of it. So we are very honored to have you here today with us. Thank you again very much for taking the time to speak with us. So let's start perhaps maybe by with the most important topic, your faith. You're not only a scientist who is a Christian, which is some would consider quite a bad enough according to some, that it's not very scientific, but you're also a Jew who is a believer in Jesus Christ. So I want to start with that. So like I said, you believe both in God and not just in God, but also in the fact that Jesus is God in the flesh, and that he resurrected from the dead, and various other things from the Bible to be true. So my question is, some people would say that that's not very scientific. What would you say to that? And do we have any proof at all towards what we read in the Bible?
Okay, so then let me just start out to say that not only do I claim that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, he means everything to me. I love the Son of God, Jesus Christ. His name is all over the Bible, not just the New Testament, but the Old Testament as well. So I would encourage those who say that a Jew can't believe these sort of things. Read the last portion of Isaiah 52 and all of Isaiah chapter 53, and tell me who you think that is speaking about, as you read about this man who has given up his life for our sins. In the book of Isaiah, the very Jewish Tanakh, read about this sort of thing. Read about Psalm 1. In Psalm 1, when it talks about the Son of God. Who is that Son of God? So to me, it is a very real thing. And I love Jesus Christ with all my heart. I am not just merely a Christian in name. Not at all. Nor am I a Jew just in name. I am descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The key is a descendant of Jacob. That I am. But what means much more to me than just the descendancy of what I am, thereby making me a Jew, it is that I believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. He is the Messiah who has come in the flesh, the very promised Messiah. Now, you asked me, where is the science in that? There is a lot of historical proof in that. So in other words, we don't prove that Caesar Augustus lived by putting something under a microscope. We look at historical proofs. The Bible is full of historical proofs. There is more written, actually, on the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ, more written about the resurrection of Jesus Christ than any historical event of that era. So in other words, you use proofs that come from history. These are the types of legal proofs that are used where people are put in jail over legal proofs. You don't just use things that that may come from putting under a microscope, you use legal proofs. You want me to go on?
Oh no, that's okay. I thought you was going to go and say something else. So thank you for clarifying that, and we appreciate your passion very much as well. So some people would say then that scientists who believe in God, Jesus, and Christianity, they're not real scientists. That scientists supposed to be like atheists, and they can't really be both scientists and believers. What would you say to that? Is that true that most of the scientists are atheists, or is it a recent phenomenon?
That's a very sophomoric view, which means a very elementary view. Those people that would say that know very little about scientific history, that the huge amount of scientific insight that has come through scientists that claim to be lovers of God, over and over again, because it is when we believe that God has set up this universe and that he has set the natural laws in their order, it causes us to want to seek these things all the more. And so if you just want to say that, okay, let's compare standards. What would you like to compare? Would you like to compare number of publications? Would you like to compare H-index? Would you like to compare the number of papers in Science or Nature? What is the spectrum that you'd like to look at that would make a scientist to show you that a scientist can publish very good science and still believe in Jesus Christ? So in other words, anybody that would make such a claim, I say that that's a very, what we would say a sophomoric or elementary view.
And what about the scientists from some of your peers perhaps, or in today's world? Are many chemists or scientists in general out there today who are starting to doubt about the origins of life as described by the Darwinian evolution?
I think that those that are really looking at the data behind origin of life end up really questioning it. So what happens is, in the academy, we are brought up to accept that scientists have a pretty good understanding of where life originated. And that's very much where I was. I grew up in the academy, but then it was only about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, that I started looking into origin of life research and saying, okay, what is really known about the origin of life? How did life start? Then I started looking at the results, the data there, and I was appalled at the claims that are made in origin of life research that they are clueless on. Nobody knows how life began. Nobody knows. And if somebody says that they know, that's a bunch of nonsense. So what they will claim is that there were molecules in a pond, some lightning strikes, and some amino acids started forming in the basic building blocks, and those got together and formed cells, and those cells got together and formed larger slithering organisms that came out of the pond. That is utter nonsense. There is no evidence for that. There's very little understanding for that. And we can go through the specifics as much or as deep as you would like.
Yes, we'll get back to the specifics for sure, but I want to ask you about the approach and the current situation in the academic circles. You've mentioned in a recent statement, I believe it was the Veritas Forum, I'm not too sure about that, but you've mentioned something along the lines that in the last few years you've seen a saddening progression at several institutions. You said that you will not comment further regarding the specifics of actions taken upon skeptics of the Darwinian evolution, but you said that if you disagree with Darwinian theory, keep it to yourself if you value your careers, unless of course you are one of those champions of proclamation. I know that fire exists in some, so be ready to let the written limbs and also the scientific community and the National Academy in particular should investigate the disenfranchisement that is manifest upon some of their own. Can you expand on that and tell us how does the sort of the Darwinian evolutionary camp treats perhaps creationists or Christians, or at least people who tend to want at least to evaluate the precepts of the intelligent project? Are they treated equally in the universities, and do scientists who are Christians and believe in creation or at least the intelligent project, do they have a chance in today's universities?
Okay, so I don't I don't teach creationism in my university classroom, so none of my arguments are based on trying to say that that there has been a creationist approach. All I do is I look at the data that comes from science on origin of life and evolution of a complex system, and I say, I don't understand it from a molecular perspective. Explain it to me. Explain it to me. Let's go step by step and explain it to me. And it cannot be explained. I'm talking about the best people out there. Talk about even evolution of a complex system. It can't be explained. Evolution or origin of life can't be explained. So what happens is, if you start saying, I don't understand, explain it to me, they will right away lump you in with a camp that is called creationists. And they say, oh, you're just a religious fanatic. I say, no, I just don't understand. Is there anything in science that you don't understand? So you ask a question. I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. Explain it to me. Does that then make me a creationist because I don't understand? And so then what they will do is they will try to exclude me from certain meetings, try to exclude me because I'm just asking the question. And when a person can't answer a question, that tells you that what they're dealing with is you're not dealing with science, but you're dealing with somebody's religion, because people don't like people asking about their religion because they may not have the answer. And so, yes, they disqualify us. They make it hard for people like us to even get in the forum to ask the question. And that's why you have to get to the level that I am scientifically to be able to say these sort of things without being overcome by the retribution that could come from this. So in other words, they may try to cut funding. They may try to exclude you from certain societies, from certain promotions. But somehow, if you get to a certain level, you have other mechanisms to fund your research, and you can continue on, as thankfully I have been. But yes, when they start to try to stifle something contrary to what they've been putting out, that tells you that we're not dealing with science anymore.
Yeah, and that was my question I want to ask. You recently revealed that when you're behind closed doors with some of these top-level scientists, even Nobel Prize laureates, candidates, they openly either say that they can explain evolution, or they just they don't want to explain, they don't want to talk about it. So one might ask, why would they expect us, the lay person, not the scientists, to believe this if they themselves cannot explain it? What would you say to that? Why do they do this?
So let me clarify that when I'm behind closed doors, I ask people, where does life come from? Do you understand where it came from? And every time they say no. They say no. They don't understand because they know exactly what my arguments are, and they don't understand. And over again, they don't understand. So they just say, well, here we are, so it must have formed. Well, great, but that's not a scientific explanation on the origin of life. It just says, it wasn't here, it was here, boom. All right. So we have no idea how it formed, and they will always agree with me behind closed doors. But when we get in an open forum, or in a forum that's being filmed like this, they won't say it so openly, because then they open themselves up for attack. And then the other thing is that when you ask about evolution is a very slippery term. Evolution has been used for many different things. We certainly see evolution in a laboratory. When you're looking at small changes, you can do these sorts of things. And so you say, there, evolution works. But no, we're talking about evolution of a complex system. How does one system change into another? Not how does within a system do you get small changes, but how does one system change into another? The details of how one system changes into another. And it's all storytelling. There's no evidence for this. And even the stories become very flimsy and weak. And what is biology has been reduced to is a bunch of storytelling, where you globally say, well, this happened. Well, how did it happen? Well, one small change at a time. Well, show me evidence for that. How does that sort of thing keep happening like that? Because we're not talking about small perturbations in an existing system. That we see all the time. What we're talking about is you have to have gross changes, vast majority of changes, and you have to have very concerted lines of changes happening all at once in the same system in order to get evolution of a complex system. This is very hard to figure out. Those who are novices think that it's figured out, and those who are experts, behind closed doors, they'll admit there's so much that we don't know, so much that we just flat out don't know. But what they project to the public is as if they really know this sort of thing. That's the problem with it, and I'm calling them out.
Before we go deeper into the cell, into the science, I want to ask you about the theory of evolution. Many Christians believe that evolution theory disputes the infallibility of the Bible, and it is a very effective tool for atheization of the young generation of students in schools and universities. Do you agree with that? And does the evolution theory have only a scientific dimension, or does it also have some sort of ideological goals and aspects to it?
So unlike most people, I have an understanding both of the science and also of the Bible. Most people don't know both areas, so I've been greatly blessed. I have never seen a conflict between a scientific fact, and something that is written in the Bible. I see lots of conflict between scientific theories and things that are written in the Bible. But theories change all the time, even well-embedded theories. Through the 1950s, so certainly in my lifetime, through the 1950s, it was believed that the universe had no beginning. It always was, and the vast majority of scientists believed that theory. It wasn't until 1963 or 1964 that background microwave radiation really nailed it, that the universe actually had a discrete beginning, something that had been proposed in the 1930s, wasn't confirmed until the 1960s. And there that whole theory changed, that indeed the universe now has a discrete beginning. That was the Big Bang theory. So we went from having from the universe having no beginning, always being, to having a beginning. There are other theories again and again. So, for example, in 1972, the theory that small changes brought about this Darwinian changes. No, that was debunked in 1972 by Gould and co-workers to show that that there is not small gradual changes, that the fossil record itself spoke of dramatic changes over a relatively short period of time, and then this stasis, this stopping, and then dramatic changes over a short period of time. Again, what happened was it was thought that the universe until the 1980s, that dinosaurs died out because of climate change. And then it wasn't until the 1980s that the Alvarez hypothesis came in. It was due to an asteroid impact on the Yucatan Peninsula that threw dirt up into the air that killed off the animals that the dinosaurs were feeding on. And so those carnivores died because the herbivores died. And so we have a new theory. So theories keep changing. We were told that dinosaurs died off 66 million years ago. And then in 2015, we found that there's dinosaur soft tissue. And since 2015, in the last 5 years, huge amounts of dinosaur soft tissue all over the place. So you're saying now that soft tissue, we're talking about proteins, we're talking about red blood cells surviving 66 million years? Did they really all die off 66 million years ago? These are theories, and theories keep changing. I have never seen discord between a scientific fact and something written in the Bible. There are scientific facts. Water is 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. May have isotopomers, but 2 hydrogens, 1 oxygen. That's the same throughout the universe. Anywhere you go in the universe, it is the same. That is a scientific fact. I've never seen discord between a scientific fact and the Bible. So people who say or suggest what you did are unknowing.
And about any other possible goals apart from scientific theory of the theory of evolution? Is there any other hidden aspect of it, or is it just pure scientific theory?
You know, I'm not one to well judge that, but I will tell you there are certainly things that they're Darwinian evolution, that we are just animals that are proceeding along a course that has no particular reason to it. It's just going on. Was a theory that came out in the 1800s that was then used extensively by the Nazis to wipe out certain people groups that they felt were not as Darwinian, as far along the Darwinian progression. Now, Darwinists don't like to admit that, but that was part of the concept of the Nazis. Was they grabbed onto this theory of evolution by Darwin, and they used it in that sense. And if you read Darwin's writings, if viewed from our eyes today, it's absolutely scary what he would say. Certain people groups would be wiped out totally by other people groups and should even be wiped out as part of a Darwinian progression. He didn't use exactly those terms, but he used things that are really quite scary. So what people do with things, yes, people will abuse things all the time. People often take good things and abuse it. So has abuse been done in the name of that? Sure. Now, have people made a lot of money capitalizing on this? Sure. I think that most people are not out there to abuse the system at all. Most people are quite sincere in their work. Are there a small number of people that will take something that may be inherently good or inherently neutral and turn it into something used for wicked means? Sure, that happens all the time with everything. Even the area in which I work, nanotechnology, which can bring so much good into the world, there will be people that will take that and use it for evil. That happens because there's still evil in this world, and that will be exploited for evil means.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a deep dive into the cell, into the science, but slowly, because I know some people are laymen and they might get lost. So let's talk about, still keeping on the subject of Darwinian evolution. The question is, can life develop from non-life? One of Darwinian's evolutionary primary claims. Can life spring into existence by chance or accident? Is that possible?
Well, I don't know if it's possible. Nobody knows. It looks very, very difficult. As a scientist, I could never say something is impossible in something like this. We don't know, but we are utterly clueless on how it might have happened. So in order to have a cell is the basic component of life. Now, if you want to redefine life like some people are, like Lee Cronin, He's trying to redefine life into something very, very, very simple that has nothing to do with life as you and I know it, so that he can say that he made life. And so I've had discussions with him. He has totally redefined life. Life has to have certain aspects to it. And the fundamental building block of a life that any biologist will tell you is you have to have a cell. Now, if you look at a cell is highly complex. It has to have 4 classes of molecules. You have to have the amino acids which build into the proteins. You have to have the carbohydrates or sugars that also assemble into these polymeric structures of the sugars. And then you have to have the lipids that are sometimes called the fatty acids. And then you have to have the nucleic acids which make up the DNA and RNA. And they are 4 classes. They are not separated from each other because often they're hooked together, but those are the 4 classes of molecules. For every one of those classes, nobody has ever shown a random approach to making those in the form that they would be needed. So in other words, with amino acids, you got to have them in chiral form. And even if you had them in chiral form, how do you get them to hook together cleanly? I'm just talking about the chemistry of hooking them together. I'm not even talking about the order of how they would hook together. That's information. That's a whole nother set of problems. But the cell is so utterly complex. So what happens is, in 1952, Miller and Urey did an experiment where they took some electrical pulses and they put it across chemicals that are supposed to be available on a prebiotic Earth. Cyanide, CO2, acetone, formic acid, and you put these discharges across it, and it's very high concentrations that would be exceedingly high, and you can see some amino acids forming. They were all in a racemic mixture, but you certainly saw racemic amino acids, and it was believed that we would now very quickly figure out how life generated. But what's happened is we've gotten further away from life than we were at that time. And the reason we've gotten further away from life is that the target, the cell, has gotten more complex. Not that the cell itself has inherently gotten more complex, but our understanding of the cell, so that every year as we learn more about the cell, it's not just a bunch of protoplasm with a bunch of amino acids thrown in there. Oh no, it is highly complex structure. The way that the amino acids would have to hook together, there's no clean chemistry for hooking amino acids together to form your enzymes, your catalytic machines to do this. There's no way to cleanly make lipid assembly. So there's no way to take cleanly take sugars and put those on nucleotides to make the nucleotides, to put them on the nucleic acids to make nucleotides, to get those to hook together. Nobody knows how to do this in any clean way. And even if you knew how to do it, what is the code? How do you hook them together to make sense? Nobody knows where the code came from. The complexity within a cell, it's not just taking these components and throwing them in there. Just take the cell, a simple cell, a yeast cell, with its 3,000 proteins. So if you just look at the protein-protein interaction, just protein-protein interaction of the 3,000 proteins that are present in the cell, you would have 10 to the 79 billion combinations of how you can do this. And those combinations are the non-covalent interactions, just the non-covalent, the non-hooking together. I can go as deep as you want to go. These numbers are astronomically difficult. That's just the basic building blocks. Nobody knows how those were made. But now, even if we were given those, how do you take it so that you can now assemble those? So get all the best scientists in the world together. You call them however many you want, all the best scientists in Poland, and bring them together. I will give you the amino acids. I will give you the lipids, I'll give you the nucleic acids, and I'll give you the saccharides, the sugars, in their chiral form. Now, can you hook them together as they need to be hooked together to make the cell? Nobody knows how to hook them together. You know, with nucleic acids, people think that nucleic acids are really complex. DNA has all this information stored in it. Yeah, DNA is an amazing information machine. But if you had a nucleic acid string of 6 A bases, A, what are the ways that you could hook those 6 bases together? One way, just A. If you had the sugar, D-pyranose, just D-pyranose, the simple sugar, D-pyranose, do you know the number of ways that you can hook 6 D-pyranoses together? Over 1 trillion ways, because it's all based on aneurysms, where you have the anomeric center, and then the different branching. How are you going to branch? Over 1 trillion ways. And these sugars are displayed off the surface of a cell hugely. And if you get one of those wrong, the cell dies. One of those. Every disorder in a cell is linked back to a problem with ultimately with sugars. And so you get that wrong, the cell dies. Nobody knows how to hook that together. Even in the best laboratories, it is painful chemistry. Nobody knows how to do that. So you get all your scientific team. I'll give you all those 4 basic building blocks. Go ahead, make a cell. Nobody knows how to do it. Because the assembly, nobody knows how to assemble them. So then I'll say, okay, you tell me the order that you want the carbohydrates hooked together. You tell me the order that you want the amino acids hooked together, so that, and I'll give you all the enzymes in whatever order you want. I'll give them all to you. Now, can you make a cell? The answer is no. I have no idea how to make a cell, because a lipid bilayer is not the same on the outside as it is on the inside. It is different. Nobody knows how to do that without flip-base enzymes doing that, and that is very, very difficult to do. And all the internal organelles have a different constitution of lipids that make them up. And it's not just a singular lipid. There have been over 40,000 different lipids that have been identified in cell membranes. And off of that, there's a huge display of sugars, of saccharides hanging off. And then there are proteins that go through these. Nobody knows how to assemble this. If anybody has any depth of scientific understanding, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know how utterly clueless we are on getting this thing figured out. So to project as if we know that if we had these, we could put together life, you know that it's not true. You absolutely know that it's not true. We're utterly clueless on the origin of life. And this is why I'm passionate about it, because I'm calling it out for what it is. We're clueless.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor, for this amazing appeal. Perhaps you want to give us a conclusion, well, you partially did, but some final words to scientists, for example, in Poland and also in other parts of the world who are watching. What would be your appeal to them in this whole topic that we have just discussed?
Well, I just say that I'm not saying that we stop origin of life research. I think that we have to continue it, but we have to change because we're getting nowhere fast. We're going nowhere. So we need to change the direction in which we're going. The present origin of life research is clueless. We have no idea where life came from. When it comes to evolution of a complex system, again, we're clueless. We don't know how complex systems evolved. We don't know how. That doesn't mean that I can say evolution is untrue. I could never say that. I could never say that, life started somehow. You want to say that it came from outer space and some aliens planted it here. I'm okay with that. But I'm talking about origin of first life. Where did that life come from? We don't know. We're clueless on that. So we have absolutely no idea. So all I'm saying is science has many, many problems. And there's many things we don't know. So to say that science has somehow disproved the Bible, again, that's sophomoric, that is novice, that is ridiculous to make such a claim. I have never seen discord between a scientific fact and something written in the Bible. And that's why I base my life on the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ has risen from the dead. We have so much historical evidence for that. The Bible has not been discounted. You can believe it.
Thank you much, Professor, for these words. I want to ask you on one last topic before we part about the current pandemic of the coronavirus. We hear strange words about some connection between the virus and 5G, that 5G radiation from 5G signals can somehow affect it. What would you say to people who believe such things? Is it possible that 5G somehow was affected the virus or is involved in this in any way?
I've done no tests on that. I'm not a virologist. I can tell you, the effects on molecular systems, by electromagnetic radiation can be measured. So that seems to me like it would be a simple experiment. If you want to say, what are they saying is modified? If you're saying that the RNA in the capsid gets modified when it's exposed to 5G electromagnetic radiation, boom, that's a very simple test to do. Just get a COVID capsid and look at the RNA and then expose it to 5G and see if there's changes. What do you want to say? Some of these experiments are very easy to do. Generally, you don't see molecular level changes by exposure to that sort of radiation. But again, without the experiment, I just don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and make suggestions as if I don't know. But that's an easy experiment to try. And then if you want to say that 5G has an effect on higher organisms, okay, that's harder to assess because higher organisms have a lot of complex chemistry, much deeper than just modifying some RNA. And so then you'd have to do some tests in order to make those claims. But until those claims until the experiments are done, I have no idea.
What would you think will be the end of this pandemic? How it will be resolved, or what do you predict is going to happen next? Is there a way to resolve it from your perhaps limited knowledge of virology?
Well, I think that we're going to come through this. I think we're going to come through it just fine. That in a year from now, we're going to look back and we say, "Wow, that was a hellish time," but we're past it, and we're going to be a lot more careful of what experiments are done on viruses that can easily get away, and we're going to be a lot more careful about these sort of things. But humankind will get past this. I am sure that if you were having bombs dropped on your head during World War II, you thought, wow, this is the end of life, this is the end of times. And the same thing in World War I. And the Bible predicts the things that are going to happen, and there's certainly going to be diseases that are going to come and hit humankind, but that's just one sign of many. Whether that's the sign of the end times, I don't know. Every generation has thought that they lived in the end times. Again, I have no idea. Every generation before me thought, oh, they lived in the end times. I have no idea, but I do know, based on what's written in the Bible. So that I'm talking about before the rapture comes. The rapture, we have no idea when that's going to come. The Bible doesn't tell us. But as far as the end times before the tribulation starts, we know that the temple is going to have to be rebuilt right there on the Temple Mount in Israel. There is no temple right there. There is a mosque right there. So the temple is going to be rebuilt. Offerings are going to start. Jewish offerings, Israelite offerings are going to start on that Temple Mount before the tribulation begins. That's what it looks to me like what the Bible says. So I'm not worried that the end times are here because on the Temple Mount there is no temple. As far as scientifically, science doesn't tell us these things. Science, that is not a question that science answers.
Thank you very much, Professor, for talking about all these exciting and interesting things. We wish you success in your continuing your career, and thank you very much for passionately sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ and showing people that you can both be a scientist and also a believer in Jesus and the Bible. So thank you very much for that, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. We were joined by Professor Jamesa Toura of the Rice University in Texas. Thank you very much for being with us. My name is Ivan Belastenko. This is Idź Pod Prąd TV. Go against the tide. Until next time, God bless.